Well, hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in the country. My name is Garrett Schmidt, and I am the managing editor for VBC Exhibit Hall. And I'm excited to welcome you to today's live webinar, which is hosted by ReferralPoint. And it is a case study titled How Privia and VillageMD Reduced Referral Leakage, Specialty, and Admin Costs. And there's going to be a lot of great nuggets in here, a lot of practicals. So I think you're really going to enjoy the presentation today. A few items of note before we get started. This is a traditional webinar format, so everybody has joined in listen-only mode, so you don't need to worry about muting your microphone or turning off your camera. We can't see you, don't worry. But we do want to hear from you, so we're going to have a time for some Q&A towards the end. And at any point during the presentation, you can ask a question, and we encourage you to do so using your control module. There's actually a little question space there, which is different than the chat. So if you just drop your question in there, we're going to get to as many as we can during the allotted time. If we don't get to yours for some reason, someone will reach out to you through email afterwards and answer your question. So even if we're just wrapping up in the last second, go ahead and ask your question and someone will get to you. And then finally, we are recording the session today. So what's going to happen is when we're done, you're going to receive an email from one of us, and it'll have maybe in a couple hours, it'll have a link to the recording as well as to where you can download the slides and review those as well. So with all that, and without further ado, I wanted to briefly introduce our speakers today. We have Mr. Robert Harris, who's the Chief Executive Officer of ReferralPoint, and also Matt Cheatham, who is the VP of Client Success. Excited to hear from you guys today. Robert, I'm going to hand it over to you to get us kicked off.
Well, thank you, Garrett, and thank you everybody for joining. And so we're going to, jump right into it. I know you're probably thinking now, who is ReferralPoint in relation to Privia and VillageMD? And so we're going to get into that. But I first need to make sure you understand kind of, really who we are, the backbone of who we are, because that's really what's going to make you understand how we're going to be different than anybody else that's in the referral space. For us to be able to say, hey, we're data driven, fully automated, and closed loop, those are words that are thrown around, but to truly pull off all three of those and to make this an overall referral management strategy, you just really can't do that unless you have a backbone like we do with Lightbeam. We are built from day one on Lightbeam. We could be separate from Lightbeam, or we can be in conjunction, connected with Lightbeam. We're not connected. We are in Lightbeam. But meaning you can get us started with us with Lightbeam or not Lightbeam. But you see on the left where we're a module within there, or it can be without it. But why does that matter? It matters because we're going to ask some big questions for you about where you really want to go. So the first big question is, what is your vision? Like, where are you trying to go? We're going to talk about that. What are your referral problems? These are the normal questions you're going to ask yourself that you're already asking yourself, but what is it really costing you? And we're going to really dive in. When we ask that to the leadership team, usually it's a kind of a vague answer, and we're going to really make it not vague, very specific. And then what's your ideal solution? Not what is a solution. What is the solution that's going to help you achieve your vision? And then lastly, well, what kind of results do you want? And we're going to show you the results that we're able to get with our clients. Well, what kind of results do you want? So be thinking about these. And you see there's Matt Cheatham. Everybody say hi, Matt. Matt, say hello. Come on, Matt.
Hey, everybody, I'm here. Hey, everybody. Glad to be here.
All right. So again, what is your vision? And first one we talked about is Privia, and we asked Larry what his vision was. And for those of you who don't know, we're in North Texas, 370 providers, 45,000 members to their ACO that they're involved in. And there was two areas that really stood out. You got Larry and his vision, and his first issue that while he was coming to us is he had these uniformity issues where everybody was doing something different, and it was by tribal knowledge of how processes were run, which is not good. And they didn't have the data or the automation. And then you got Dr. James Parker. He is awesome to work with, and his issue, and he wanted to have this vision of, man, how do we get this data? Not just their own commercial or their own claims data, but how do we get all of CMS and a majority of commercial data and it's also built by episode? How do we get that data? And then how do we actually literally pull off to refer to lowest cost, highest quality? And then thirdly, to have a centralized referral desk. That was their vision that they wanted at some point, but they didn't know how to get there. And then lastly is how to expand their value-based care contracts. And so that's probably some of the visions that you guys have. And then the other client that we're going to talk about is VillageMD. And you see a circle down there that shows Texas. As you can see, they're all over the country, but we are starting in Texas. Don't want you to assume that we're all over there yet, but we're making great progress, as we'll show you, and that is leading us down the direction of expanding to the other areas. So let's go to this vision. And everybody here is either in value-based care or you are moving to value-based care, but everybody always knows, hey, look, we got to move up the food chain here. How do we do that? Well, like VillageMD, they had like 2 million members, but only 150 something thousand that were on value-based care. But what does that have to do with referrals? What has everything to do with referrals? Because they knew in order to be able to move more into risk and move up that food chain, they needed to be able to have an organization that can help them measure everything so they can make that transition of everything from, as you know, quality outcomes, patient satisfaction, costs, and provider satisfaction. But a normal referral management company isn't already prepared to measure everything. But a pop health company is. So I don't want to miss this opportunity to really expand on that, is that because we're a pop health company too, is that we're already measuring all these things. We're already having to get the most shared savings of any other pop health company in the industry as a proven fact. If we run the numbers, and it's over $2 billion in savings now that we've helped organizations save, and that's our business. Is we help identify the patients that you can really go focus in on, or other processes, and get the most shared savings out of that and highest quality. So because that's already in place, that matters to you. If you're only here talking about referral management today, that's great. We can only do referral management. If later on down the road you want to add the other things that are needed for value-based care, we can do those too, but you don't ever have to do that. But either way, you get the benefit of that it's on the platform of measuring everything, and the data and the automation and the closed loop that we talked about at the beginning, that's only possible if you're on this platform. So that's what gets us excited and why our clients get excited. So what problems are our clients, or in this case Privia or Village, both were faced with? Well, the same ones that most are is, today's world, the backlog of referrals is piling up. The referrals are based on who the provider knows. And by the way, yes, that is Fletch, and the tennis partner, Dr. Dolan. Or if an organization is really, and I'm trying to pull you in here, Matt, if an organization is really sophisticated, what do they have?
If they're really sophisticated, they've got connected tools, right?
No, I meant like that's if they got us, right? But I'm talking about if they're sophisticated, they're using a spreadsheet.
Yeah,
unsophisticated.
Sophisticated, unsophisticated, right?
I mean, if the highest sophistication that we come across is they're using a spreadsheet.
That's right.
And in that spreadsheet, Matt, they don't know if they're retired, they don't know if they're out of network, lowest cost, highest quality, if they don't know if they close a loop, they don't know if they take the patient's insurance. They're trying to pull all that together in the spreadsheet, and then they're trying to get all the referral coordinators or the staff of each clinic to use this shared spreadsheet. Yeah, it's not happening very well, and not that they're not able to try to do some of it, but it's been clunky. It takes extra time. They can't measure and they can't control it. And so what else are the issues? You got prior auths, sending the referral, scheduling it, closing that loop. They're all done manually. So are your processes for patient experience old? Well, that's That's what you want to be able to identify. That's what you already are understanding. Is almost all of the clients that we talk to, at least most of their processes are old. And so we were able to identify those challenges for Privia. Let's just start with them. So network leakage and costs, most identify with that and have those same challenges. Manual workflows. And then you go low patient experience, and then lack of visibility and accountability, and then staffing challenges. Those were the same challenges that they had, that most we come in contact with have the similar challenges. Maybe you have some of these similar challenges too. So the first thing we do is we come in and, all right, well, let's look at all those challenges. We're going to create a blueprint, and we're going to show you step by step whether you use us or not. This is important for you to understand. Whether you ever use us or not, we're going to create a blueprint. We want to be a partner with you. And so we're going to uncover the requirements you're going to need to achieve your vision. So we have to first really fully understand your vision, fully understand the problems you're trying to overcome, and then create a blueprint on how and what steps you would have to take, what systems you'd have to have in place in order to achieve that vision. And that's first. And that's the same thing we do with Privia and Village. And so they're able to see, and it's like a way to pass around to the other executives so they can see the bigger picture and get in alignment with a plan, and makes the buying decision even much easier for them to buy into what, as you as the champion who's been assigned to go out and find the right solution, makes you look really good. And so what we start with is, what's the cost? So in this area, let's come back here. These are the same 6 areas that maybe you guys have been trying to really measure. And so that's what we do. When we start with a client, that's the first thing to do, is we measure network and referral insights. So Matt, why don't you share kind of what we're doing on this?
Yeah, so a couple of things that are really key here is, obviously Robert talked about utilizing any data we can grab. So claims, any market information on your providers, things like that. We're going to take that information, help you develop networks based on that data and based on what we know about the market you're in. And again, we're going to work with you through this to create tiers in your marketplace. So you may have a top tier set of doctors, a second tier, and so on, so that, one of the big things with VBC, right, is finding those lower cost physicians that have high quality metrics, right? So we're going to take all that information, gather it, centralize it, produce reports, and then generate what that savings can look like if we can reroute some of those lower, less desirable, let's say, specialists. How do we direct the referrals to those high value specialists to limit cost?
Yeah, and we're going to show them some of
those.
We're going to show them some of those, Matt, here in a minute. You're going to have a chance to show those. But back here, we're talking about, creating the scores in order to build their networks. What are we doing here with being able to, you got 6 areas of identifying how we, create the scores. Tell me a little bit more about how we create these scores.
Yeah, so again, we're aggregating that data, that information that we can gather either from third parties, from your claims information, again, from what you know and understand of your marketplace, and then creating outcomes, which we call outcomes, which is quality, cost, subjective information, and so on. But we have a tool called Match Criteria where we create weights behind each of those categories.
So you could change each of these. We're changing each of these for each specialty.
That's right. And then within each of those categories, there are subcategories that create cost, right? So you might see days in acute care as a top level metric for a certain specialty versus
gotcha.
Cost per claim or cost per claimant or things like that. So we can weigh them to create a unique score, and we actually can create that unique score by specialty, by facility, so that we're doing it the right way for each of those individual categories.
And so that when they move to step 2 and move them into the network, so this is commercial in network, and it's already putting their scores, and thumbs up means in network, thumbs down means out of network. And then on the map, you're able to see how your providers are stacking up against the other providers in the area based on those scores, on how you just customize the scores for every specialty.
That's right. I think
So
one of the key things of that, and we'll get into this later, is that mapping feature. You know, a lot of your MAs, your referral coordinators are having to find, they're going to Google to see how far a patient might live from a specialist, and that's all ingrained in this product. So we'll get into that more later, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's just show them some of the reports. One of them, you know, this was an ask from a payer at first, and now we've implemented this for all of our non-payer clients as well, is to be able to have month over month a drill down to any provider group or clinic or a specific provider, and by any leakage type, by any contract, by any network, and be able to drill down and say, all right, here's our overall patients. And then the patients seen that month, and then how many of those patients were referred out of network, and then to drill down, oh, here's my specialty leakage percentage. Well, what's going on with that? Finally, you'll be able to know. So here we go. We can do a drill down and be able to see, all right, here's my PCPs that are causing the leakage. And I want to pick on, you know, one of them. Let's just start with Rondell Smith, and I pick on Rondell Smith, not pick on him, but just want to drill down. And now it's my specialties. And then I want to say, all right, what about cardiovascular or any of them? And then be able to drill down and say, all right, here's the dollars that were spent from Rondell Smith to these specialists to be able to have the conversation with Rondell Smith or Elizabeth or Dante, and start having those really good conversations, Matt. And isn't that really kind of the first place that you start with clients?
Absolutely. Yep. We're going to, just like most analytic platforms, we're going to start with those high flyers, right? The ones we can make the most change and the most movement.
And then you can explain these two here, Matt. Same type of concept.
Yeah. So top one's just a DRG report, where it just gives you a grasp, an idea of how the impact that we can make if we can direct referrals, specifically on a facility basis, on an inpatient level. Right. You've got patients across large markets. How do we direct them to certain providers that are affiliated with certain facilities? And so when we do that, this is a tool to just show you the impact that we can have. A small change in facilities can make a huge impact financially for your company, for your group. So
and then what do you do? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So and then the second analysis is gaps in your networks. So what this tool down here is showing you is within a zip code, if you have access to, let's say, a cardiologist, but you can look at the specific PCPs and see that we're referring within that zip code to an out-of-network cardiologist. So there's some information there that can be fed into talking to your PCPs as to why they're selecting higher cost potentially or out-of-network specialists when there are options within range, right? But it also shows you that there are gaps in your network, right? If you have patients that are constantly going out of network in certain zip codes, you can now look at, we can start analyzing that zip code in particular and see, is there a specialist that you need to be in communication with, maybe adding them to a contract and so on.
Is that what the red gaps mean? There's no specialist there, so that's a gap. So you'd have to add specialists in that zip code.
That's right.
Okay. So
yeah,
you go by zip code or by specialty.
Yeah, we call it network adequacy. There's a couple of different ways to describe it, but ultimately we're trying to make sure that you have coverage for all of your patients, and you've talked to physicians that we need to talk to within those areas.
Okay, so with Privia, so we're just kind of walking through here. That's what we did with them. With third-party cost and quality data, including by episode, to identify these. In this example, is here's the specialties, here is what they've been choosing compared to the best available based on the data, what the delta cost was, what their savings could be. And this has been, very eye-opening for the whole organization. And now they're making progress. Identified $4.8 million that they're actually in the process of tackling to go get, because now they have the tool to do something about it. First, they needed the data, and that's what Dr. Crudup is saying here. First, we needed the data and reports to show PCPs. in order for them to see how important it is to allow ideal match to help determine who to refer to. And you know, it would be great if everybody would just go along and say, oh yeah, no problem, let's use this tool. But sometimes the proof is in the pudding, right, Matt?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Having reports in front of you and data in front of you when you're talking to a PCP about right, working through behavior changes, right, different choices and referrals. Gosh, having the data in front of you is super impactful and really helps with the direction that you're trying to give that PCP.
Yeah, so speaking of that, now let's transition to Village. And so here's their specialties. This is just one of the markets. For just one of the markets, the impact of savings on, and I'm gonna make sure we explain this right, Matt. So we've got this in-network per visit, out-of-network per visit, what the variance is, and then the referral coordinators, you know, have 75 referral coordinators because they're used to referring to who they want to refer to based on, well, they always go here. And even though they have now the data to make sure they're referring to the right person, they're still not choosing to. So we found where the issues were, and now we're in the process of fixing that. So they're so excited about identifying that it wasn't just the PCP, but it was also the referral coordinator. And so now we'll show you how we're solving that to where now we're estimating, you know, very conservative, it should probably be 99%, but 90%, that'd be $11 million savings just by fixing that the referral coordinators would refer to the right provider. And then the PCPs, through education, getting them to leave the field blank and allowing the system to determine, and even if they only 50% of the time can make sure they're referring to the in-network provider using ideal match, that's $20 million. So that's a $31 million saving that they felt was conservative numbers. Matt, anything else you want to add to that?
No, I just, well, yeah, the one thing is just we're going to work alongside your team to create these variances, right? It's different by market. So we want to create reasonable numbers so that we can create reasonable outcomes and expectations of where we can deliver. So I imagine that many of you on this call will have similar looking numbers though. When we do this for other clients, the impact is huge financially.
Okay, so that's the first two. One is leakage, one is referring to, the second one is referring to lower cost. So those are two ways that we help. The third way, Matt, and this one has been a big one, and that's manual chores, right? Is being able to say, all right, well, how long is each chore taking? You know, everybody think, oh, we're gonna save time. All right, well, let's actually look. And so we meet with the team, your team, and actually, all right, so how long does it take to do each of the steps? And we've found some averages, but we'll still meet with your team to say, how long does it take to decide who to refer to? I got to verify a patient's insurance. I got to pick up my referral order. I've got to check the spreadsheet. I got to check if the specialist takes the insurance. I need to figure out the distance and the map. You know, these are all manual steps that humans are doing that are all manual versus we now automate those things. Let's move to prior auths. Go to, if it's a referral notification, they're having to manually type into Availity or whatever the payer side is and manually log in over and over again to see if it's approved. All these things take time versus if we can automate those. Sending, scheduling, close that loop with the patient, close that loop with the specialist, and typically it's 50% or more that we can save on time just through automation. So that's the third area. And this is what, you know, one of the things that Privia had pointed out is we've automated a lot of their steps. And so this will be in the case study we send to you. You can read about it on that step. This is VillageMD's. And Matt, you know, we don't just try to fix everything in one day, do we, right? We come in and really identify where they're at and do a phased approach, right?
That's right. Yeah, I think the key here for everyone to understand is that we're not just going to hand over a tool and say, good luck. Here's a black box that you need to figure out how to use and integrate. We're going to work alongside your team to integrate the tool, make sure it fits your workflow appropriately. And that's why we create for every client a phased approach. So you can see here the approach we took with Village specifically, where we automated some of those easier processes and then really got down into the thick of it and integrating with their EMR where we're pushing and pulling different information back. But again, streamlining the process, you know, referral leakage, there's a great deal of savings there, but man, if the team is really on board and engaged to use the product the right way because they see it as a benefit to their workflow, wow, we've really got an engine running now, right? So
Yeah.
We're going to work with your team to create that approach, that phased approach.
Yeah, so we're on phase 3 now with them, and we're doing about 25,000 referrals a month, 75 referral coordinators, and you're looking at the time. And so we're excited to show you not just what we're doing phase 1 and phase 2, but what we're able to do in phase 3. And we'll come to that here in a little bit. That's really a great impact that we're making there. So that's we're on to what's your ideal solution. So we're thinking about your solution. We've been talking about other clients. What's your ideal solution? So you'll want to make sure that you have a system that can ingest your patients and your claims, because we need to automate these things. We need to have the data accessible so that we can build the network, so we can automatically verify patients' insurance, so we can automatically present up the ideal match with inside the EHR and not some other system you're using. It's one of the things you're gonna see is we're not having your team use our system. They're gonna use your EHR. We're just doing a little pop-up. They use this for 5 seconds, but that 5 seconds is gonna be powerful. And it's gonna automate the ideal match. And then Sarah starts moving. She helps automate the prior auth all in the background, the scheduling, the sending, closing loop with that patient and closing loop with that provider. And these are a lot of the manual steps that teams are doing, Matt. So what are we seeing? 50% or more time savings?
Oh, yeah. Again, we'll work with your team to create that that number and what we think we can do. But again, I've said the word impact, I feel like 30 times on this phone call, but we'll talk with you and work with your team to find where we can make the fastest impact with the least resistance from your team. And then we're always going to progress it to the most automated we can get it. So again, continuing to press on that workflow.
Okay, so we're gonna get to what one of the main questions people want to see is, well, how does it work in my EHR? So first step is deciding who to refer to. So remember, we talked about the data, we build the networks, and now we want to present the ideal match so that the provider really can say, hey, we're going to match you with the ideal specialist that is in network, takes your insurance, highest quality, lowest cost, and then be able to push that back into the EHR. But as a reminder, it's first we get the matching criteria Matt talked about, where we create the custom scores. It's not our scores, they're your scores. That's important to remember. We'll show you that when we work with you. Second thing is, these networks are your networks. Even though we show you how we do it and we actually do most of the work, there's not really much lift on your side. You send us whatever you have already in place. If you already have networks built, we ingest those, right, Matt?
Absolutely, yeah. We've built a tool where we can ingest any custom scoring. So, yep, we'll include all of that.
Okay, so whether they already have them, but by ingesting them, we'll have their scores how they want them, and they can massage them based on using anything else that they may not have included in their scores, like subjective or access or volume or loyalty, or maybe other data sets they don't have. So even if you already have a network or you already have scores, we can use it just the way you have it out of the box. You can use Care Journey or any other data source in there. We'll ingest those, whatever you've got, but you can also massage them. So again, you feel comfortable and your providers feel comfortable. We didn't come up with them, that you guys came up with them. So now that you have your networks, now we're at the place of, okay, how does this access inside the EHR? So we're going to show you that you can either access it through single sign-on from the EHR, or you're in the EHR, it pulls us up with inside the EHR, and then we push back into the EHR. Same thing, a single sign-on from a ribbon, or if you wanted to, you could just use it through the web browser. Either way, it works just the same. And back here, I wanted to point out what EHRs, we can integrate with almost any EHR. There hasn't been one that we've seen that we can't, except for one that I'm confident they don't allow, and that's EMD. But outside of that, everyone else has been friendly for us to be able to integrate with, that we've had a client, especially these. So we should be able to take care of you on that front. And how it works is there's going to be a button inside of the EHR. You see here, here's ideal match. It pulls up the page inside of the EHR, inside the look of the EHR. And because we already have all the patient information, we already have all the provider information. Remember I was talking about you have to have a pop health company to have all that data. So that means we have all the patient demographics, what insurance, who they're attributed to, do they accept text, make sure we have their cell phone, all that's already in our system. So we can automate the rest in the background, present Angela Shed as the ideal match. All you have to do is hit schedule by patient if the patient is going to try to get with the specialist, or hit schedule by staff if your staff is scheduling it, or book it if you want to book it in real time. And so either way, that's what those 3 buttons are. And as soon as you hit that button, that's like your submit button, and it pushes it into the EHR. And then what's neat is that the user just moves right on to their next thing that they do in their EHR. So that step, as you'll see in the video, only takes, a few seconds. So this here is showing that we push into the action notes. Some EHRs is pushing into other fields, but this is Athena showing into action notes. And then this here, Matt, you want to explain what this is?
Yeah, so this is an idea that came from leadership at Village, and we've worked really hard on this, is to create what we've sort of called the easy button, which is when an order is created and signed, we push in and populate the top recommended specialist based on that information in the order. So eliminating the requirement to go to ReferralPoint or out of the EHR in a sense, but still collecting the data in our system and communicating with the patient. But this is where we see a lot of the market moving, where we're pushing in the result that we're looking for, that top tier #1 specialist close to the patient's home, accepting all those things that we've talked about, so that, again, your team's not going through and having to manually pull in that information, but it produces it, pushes it out, it's on the order, the patient gets the information quickly, the specialist knows they're getting the top tier, and we're, again, the impact lowering costs across the board because leakage is now decreasing significantly.
Okay, and we see here that it's done, like you said, in 3 phases. The first phase is that we auto-populate when the specialist field is empty. So then the second phase is you're influencing the PCPs to leave the field empty, and that they could override it if they need it. And then the third phase is to actually populate ideal match plus automatically do verify patient's insurance plus do the authorization, all without using a referral coordinator at all. And that's kind of what you said the leadership at Village is going for.
And I think it's a out too in phase 2 here that, if a patient ultimately prefers a certain specialty or specialist rather, or they have a relationship, right? They've previously visited a specialist and want to keep that going. We're not trying to change that, and that can always be handled very well and easily through the process. But ultimately, we're trying to make a global change, right? And then again, global impact on leakage and workflow.
Yeah. Okay. So then before we can play this video, there's a couple things that are going to happen in that video. Is we're going to verify patient's insurance as well. This is an addition. So whenever this pop-up inside the EHR comes up, it's ideal match, but we're also going to verify patient's insurance because that's a step most admin are having to do, and they're having to go log in. So instead of having to go log in, we just pulled it right in here through API, and to be able to automatically verify yes or no. So that step be done right there. The second thing that is typically done right after deciding who to refer to is, oh gosh, we got to do an auth. Now I got to go log into 3 to 5 different payer sites depending on the insurance. Well, what if we could eliminate that, Matt? So not everybody can pull this off because they're not pulling in patients. We're pulling in the patient data. We already have the provider data. We already have your network data. Everything's already in our system. So that's why we can automatically submit and through an API over to the payer sites. Those payer sites can push to us, and then we can push that back into the EHR. And so anything else you want to add to this, Matt?
Oh, just back to that, one of those first slides we showed. You can't do all that with a spreadsheet, right? We all love our spreadsheets, but that can't be done there. So that's
so we're
why
gonna.
we created this.
So we needed to show you all that because all that's going to happen really fast right here. So I'm clicking this. That's a user inside of any EHR. This so happens to be Athena, and they're going to click on their referral order. What are they going to start with? And oh, they normally would go look at a spreadsheet to try to determine and look at Google Maps to decide who to refer to. Instead of that, it can pull up our ideal match and see if you can see this is inside of Athena still. So at this point, this one has 2 referral orders for that same patient, so I had to map it to that right referral order. And so, oh, we still have to verify patient's insurance without having to go log into Availity or whatever. This is done right there, so that part's done. Okay, so I'm going to pipe in what's the specialty, and I need to hit pause right here, Matt. Some really neat things are happening right here. Matt, you want to explain this validate insurance real quick and address?
As fast as I can. So just when your users are in the application, one of the things that's a struggle sometimes is both address information getting updated or changing, and insurance is accepted by the specialist. So the 2 things we have in this view here are your ability to validate them. So as a user, if you've called for whatever reason a specialist to verify insurance or verify their address, you can click a button and validate it. That validates it across the board for all users, right? So we're sharing in that information. And then over time, that validated date, if it, let's say it was 6 months ago, that score, that confidence score will degrade through an algorithm, because we know that after 6 months, there's potential that that has changed, that maybe that doctor doesn't accept Blue Cross anymore, right? So we're giving you the ability to layer in a confidence score in that, both that address and that insurance information being accurate. And again, the key is that we're sharing that burden of keeping that information up to date. One person does it, shares it across the platform. Imagine that many of you, your referral coordinators are calling over and over and over again to verify the same doctor takes the same insurance, and that's just silly, right? Let's make one call, make one verification, and then everybody shares.
Yeah, and Matt, if they have the data here's the insurance that they've been keeping up with in Excel, we just ingest that as a starting place of the date. When was the last time it was updated, right?
That's right, exactly. Yeah, we can create, yep, like you just said, starting point for sure.
Okay, all right. So let's hit play here and see how this plays out. Oh gosh, I'm already need to do an auth, but I didn't have to log in to do an auth. I just did it. So I already just submitted my auth, and I already have my auth number. And let's see what happens inside of Athena. Let's go check that referral. And there's the ideal match, and there it is in the action note. There was the NPI number. Here's my approval of the auth, effective date, the visits, and insurance is verified successfully. So that is where it happens all really fast. So again, you're less than 60 seconds to do things that are usually taking 15 to 30 minutes in cases because of the auth. Okay, anything else you have on that, Matt? Anybody have any questions that people have thrown out on the screen, Carrie-Ann or Matt?
No other comments from me, and I don't see the questions, so I'll leave that to Carrie-Ann.
All right. Okay, so let's now move to what happens after you decide who to refer to. We talked about, all right, patient, if scheduled by patient or scheduled by staff, or book it. And there's 3 different workflows depending on which submit button you use. So if it's scheduled by patient, that's going to do this workflow I'm showing you, but it's a similar workflow for scheduled by staff, and we'll show that to you here in a minute. But scheduled by patient, typically, in most cases, Matt, most clients have at least some portion, if not a majority of their referrals, that the patient is connecting with the specialist to schedule their appointment, right?
That's right. Sorry, you caught me drinking water here. That's right. Yep.
Okay. All right. So, and this is going to their normal text, not an app. And so this is the first text message they would get, and send this to Sarah. and we're saying, hey, we've matched you with the ideal specialist, and here it is. You just click to call or click on the address that pulls up their map right on their phone. And if the specialist, if your organization has specialists where you have a link to a calendar, we can just add it right into the text messages and emails. But what you can never do if it's scheduled by patient is know if they went. You normally hand them a sheet of paper and you don't know if they ever went or not. Well, because Sarah is personalized, she's communicating with them like an AI person. And even though they know it's AI, they know it's just a computer talking with them, but she's talking in a way that they respond. And it's amazing the response. Where's that you, Matt? You about to share something?
Nope, I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay.
Doing great.
I just heard you breathing, I guess. So I see you reviewed the link. Were you able to schedule your appointment? Yes. To ensure you're taken care of, can you please reply with a date and time? And they're doing that. We're going to show you some of those reports. And then because we have the date and time, we can send the reminders. And then on every one of them, it's following this channel of progress. And we want to know, did they show and did we close that loop? And we do that by, did you attend your appointment? Yes. And can you please rate your experience, without sending them a link that they have to fill out and open up, which most people don't do. It's just right then and there. They reply 1 to 5. Now we've documented the score for every specialist gets a score, and it continues to go on how well they're doing with the patients based on patient feedback. And so that's Sarah. Anything else you have on that? You want me to keep going, Matt?
Just real quick, we will take that patient experience score and over time utilize that as part of your scoring if you want to. So we're now integrating data from claims, but also from patient experiences, which is really neat.
Yeah. So in a minute, a few minutes ago, I mentioned that it's same process, but just different messages, whether scheduled by patient or scheduled by staff. If we already have the date and time, now we're not having to get the date and time. We already know it, so we can send those reminders to get them to show. But in every case, we're going to close that loop with the messaging on that side. So as far as Privia, you can explain this one, Matt.
Yeah. So we create a patient handout so that we can give to your patients as they're leaving the office, so that they aren't worried that they're getting spammed, right? So when we did that, it created a lot of responsiveness back with patients, right? So we're getting them comfortable with that experience, with the messaging, and ultimately that resulted in better outcomes for our client, right? We're seeing better results with our Privia patient population because they're engaging with the messaging. So when we start to work with you, we'll create this handout to make sure that it flows well for your patient experience, and then also create a video that you can play in your offices so that they see it as they're walking through your clinics.
Great. But isn't that amazing? 90% of the referrals are now done through Sarah. We weren't expecting that high of percent, let's just say that. But it's been amazing that people do respond at that high level. But speaking of, yeah, you wouldn't think that faxing gets people to move, but if it's on a sequence and it has the right messaging, it does. The same way with the messaging on the texts and the emails to the patients. If it's done right, it increases response rate. And so this is one actually written by the CMO of Vanguard. And he wanted to make sure that they understood that, hey, if you're going to get my referrals, I need that consult note back. So we created multiple faxes for that to go to them, so they would make sure they're faxing it back. That's one way of closing the loop. Another way that others can't do, because they're not ingesting claims, they're not a pop health company, is we would actually take the claim. So we're trying to take this referral all the way through. Did we get it scheduled? Did they show? And did we close the loop? And on every one, it stays red until we did close that loop, either scheduled by patient, or excuse me, did we close the loop with the patient? Did we close the loop with the recipient? But even if we didn't close the loop on either one, at least we know we can close the loop with the claim of what was the procedure, what was the diagnosis, what was the cost of using the claims, all in this referral order here in one place. Anything else on that, Matt, or you want me to keep going?
No, keep going. You're doing great.
Okay. All right. And for those of you who are interested in inbound referrals, we can walk through that when we meet with you. These two clients are mainly focused on outbound from PCP to specialist, but we can help you if you wanted to do that. We have our own referral inbox. So that the challenge of referrals coming in and then being able to read the facts and then to start processing that referral all the way through, sending out the intake form and getting them to show. And then if you have a sub referral, making sure that those sub referrals are going to the network that you want them to, the lowest cost, highest quality, all that still, you get the benefits of both. So it's just sent or receive all in the same system here. Okay, tracking. Now, because we can push into the EHR, you can use what we push back into the EHR to track. But this is also a dashboard that you can use to be able to see, like on a prior auth. Some need attention. Okay, great. Which ones need attention? Okay, let's go fix those. Some are approved, and we're pushing this back into the EHR. But some organizations like to use this because it has all in one place in a CRM view, just like you see here on that side. Another thing is a specialist account. So if you have specialists, you want to be able to help them see where they're at with all the referrals. And because Sarah's automatically scheduling these, you can have specialist accounts added to what we do with you. Let's keep going on our reporting. Man, we probably need a whole meeting on reporting, right, Matt? We have so many reports that we do for our clients. This kind of gives you, Matt, I don't know if you want to, you can explain this one.
Just at a high level, it gives you a rundown of where every referral is, how we're doing with engaging with the patient, and closing the loop, and then those average scores that we're seeing. Again, just to track that progress is improving, right? We always want to get the information we can and then show that it's, across time that percentages are increasing. So leakage is going down, patient experience is going up, and so on.
Okay, and then we have all kinds of dashboards that this is out of the box dashboard, but we customize them for our clients. And each one of these have where you click in and get the data, deeper dive data for each one of these, including Sarah and all the communication with Sarah, what percent that they're engaging, what percent they're scheduling, what percent they're closing the loop, your payer mix, and then any questions you have on data, we can do a deeper dive on. But one of the things that organizations want to know is, kind of a report card overall, or a report card for each their PCPs and their specialists. And yes, that's a big ask. Not a big ask, but a lot. Most clients want to have accountability to be able to have for their PCPs and their specialists. And now, whatever report card criteria. So here it's a report card criteria. Whatever columns you want to add or whatever you want to measure, now you're having a score for each of your PCPs as well as your specialists and how well they're doing against their peers. That in itself helps create that accountability needed to change behavior. And that was one of the things that Privia had pointed out, is that, hey, we've not only increased their visibility, but greatly increased their accountability for both their PCPs and their specialists. And all this will be included in the case study, which we'll give to you. But we wanted to get to this area here. It's been a big win for those of you who've had staffing issues or just want to do it for a lower cost. So Matt, I'll let you explain this, what we've been able to do with Privia.
Yeah, we found a need that they had, that staff obviously was a problem. So we came to them with a solution that we have staff that can log in, and we've experienced staff that can process referrals on behalf of the PCP offices. And in doing that, right, we sort of create a centralized process, a centralized desk. And by creating that centralized desk and those processes, we've increased their MIPS scores significantly, right? They've gone down from 31% errors to 1.4%, and then lowered the cost to process the referral, because again, we've centralized that work, and we've really seen a great increase in this, and we've seen a need for it across other markets as well. So yeah, if that's something you guys find you need, then obviously we can talk through that.
So you'll get this afterwards, this case study that kind of breaks down each one of these areas. And then you'll get in here, this is the VillageMD kind of points on here. and then another one, Vanguard. But as far as time's sake, let me just go back to Vanguard again. This group here is a smaller group. Some of you are thinking, well, I'm not as big as Privia or as VillageMD. Vanguard has 52 providers. I mean, we've helped organizations only have a few providers. So it doesn't matter how big you are, we can still come in and really help you. And I mean, think about a group that's only got 52 providers and being able to reduce leakage by 75% and unnecessary costs by 10%. That's a big win for an organization that size. So you just kind of have to ask yourself, what capabilities would help you achieve your vision that we've gone through here? Identify your problems and opportunities, customize your provider and facility scores, build your networks or ingest your networks, automate ideal match, automate the scheduling, prior auth and closing loop, and then measure performance. That's what we want to know afterwards. We're going to reach out to you and ask you to kind of give feedback of which of these 5 would help you the most to help you achieve your vision. So what are the next steps? And how do we help you get from where you are now to where you want to be? And the first thing is we capture your vision, just like we showed you we did for Village and for Privia. And then we prioritize a criteria. It's not a demo. We're really just prioritizing what you need to achieve your vision. And in the demo, it's a back and forth. It's not like a show and tell. It's a back and forth of what really do you need? Here's what we've got. What do you need? How to help you achieve your vision? And then, as I mentioned, it's a blueprint. We create this blueprint on how to help you get to your after story, and you get it whether you do business with us or not. But that's the value you get by working with us and going through this process with us. And so if you're interested in a blueprint, Carrie Ann's going to be reaching out to you. You just say, hey, I'm interested in getting a blueprint, and we'll get you through that process. So we're now at Q&A. So Garrett, I'll let you kind of jump in here.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for the presentation so far. We do have a number of audience questions here that have come in. So no particular order here. First question is, can you elaborate on where your quality data is sourced?
Yes, Matt. Yeah. So one, it's in the claims data, right? We're going to take the claims data and analyze it, and then do episodic measurements. Again, Robert mentioned it. We have a population health backbone that we're working on, so we can create episodes out of that. Then 2, one of the biggest ones, we have a third-party vendor that we use that has more than just your data, right? If you're a subset of a large community, a large market, we need all of the information on those specialists. So we would gather that from that third-party vendor. And again, it mentions days in acute care, mortality rates, and some other metrics that are important. But yeah, we get it from both your claims data and third-party sources.
Okay.
And a follow-up question actually from someone else is, and this might relate, is what is the source for the leakage data shared earlier? Is that claims data as well?
Yeah, so by default, if we can ingest your claims data, we'll use that initially to create, alongside your network, right, your referral network that we've built. We'll create that leakage reporting. Right, we have to do that based on what we've assumed from the data. And then from there, once we start actually processing the referrals through Ideal Match, then we have real data, right, that we can back into and connect with the claims. So initially, we're trying to get a picture of, and Robert just mentioned this on maybe the last couple of slides there, where you're at and where you want to be, right? And so we've got to measure where you're at so that we can see how we're going to get you to where you want to be. And so we'll use that initial claims data to create those reports, and then from there we'll actually have anecdotal data that your team is producing inside of Ideal Match.
Okay, great. Next question here is, for inbound referrals, does Sarah handle the contacts and scheduling?
On the inbound side, no. Let's see. So when a referral is sent into a specialist office, that specialist receives that inbound referral. Right now, no, we are not communicating back to the patient to schedule it. but we are working on tying into the PM system so that we can do that. But right now, your team would still handle that. Specialist MA team would still handle it in their standard way of receiving it, reaching out to the patient. The thing we like though is that we're sort of attacking it for both ends, right? The patient now has the information, the specialist has the information. We're trying to get them both to take accountability in getting that patient scheduled. And so, yeah, so not direct, it's not directly automated scheduling, but it is, that's something we're working on in our roadmap for sure.
Yeah, so what I think they're referring to here, this mat right here, is being able to go. So Sarah does jump in and do the scheduling at the point whenever you were thinking they were asking, is it going to do a direct schedule in the PM? And you answered that correctly, is that we can integrate with anybody who's in the PM, but we're using Sarah to help schedule that on the specialist side. I think that's what, you know, the question is, can we use Sarah to do that?
Might have got down too far into the weeds there. Yeah.
No worries, no worries. And last question that we have time for today, and if it's able to be answered quickly, is do specialists have the time? I'm sorry, do specialists have to have access to the platform for appointments to get scheduled?
So this is where the PCP is doing an outbound referral, and they're sending the referral over to the specialist, and either the staff is scheduling that on the PCP side with the staff of the specialist side. That's if it's scheduled by staff. So let me go here. If it's scheduled by staff, that's usually what's happening is someone on the PCP side's calling someone on the specialist side and having to go, and then call the patient back and all this round and round back and forth. And what Sarah is doing is Sarah's eliminating having to communicate with the patient, because as soon as you call the staff and identify, hey, it's 2 p.m. on Thursday, the automation is going to let the patient know, hey, you have an appointment at 2 o'clock on Thursday. But we showed you also the example, if it's scheduled by patient, that you don't know if they went. And so Sarah is helping them to go call the specialist while the specialist also trying to call the patient and getting them to connected to schedule that faster. And that's why we showed you that Privia has now said, we're just going to do all our referrals this way. It's too hard, and not stat referrals. Stat referrals, the staff still calls, but anything that's a routine referral, they just relied on Sarah, and she's been scheduling 90% of their scheduling to help them get connected with the specialist much faster, easier than the staff trying to get in the middle of that on that side. So that's how they handle on that.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time for today, but I want to thank you, everybody, for attending. As we close out here, I wanted to encourage you all to head over to VBC Exhibit Hall to check out the ReferralPoint exhibit booth that they have there. And this is a really cool tool that you can use to do more of a drill down on some of their resources and what they're doing in the value-based care space, and really just educate yourself on them. And of course, you can reach out to them there. And then finally, if you'd like to contact our speakers today or the ReferralPoint team, feel free to do so. If you could go to that next slide there for me, Robert. All right, you'll see their information here, or you can reach out to me. I'm happy to facilitate an introduction as well. But I wanted to thank you all again so much for joining us. I hope you will join us on a future webinar, and have a wonderful rest of your days and weeks.
Yeah,
so
thank you,
thanks
everybody.
so much.
Thanks, everyone.